Hi everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you today how to do this simple little fringe necklace. When it hangs, it looks really great on. It's a really kind of statement piece that you can wear that's going to be sparkly and nice if you use crystals. And for this, we're going to be using a lot of crimp tubes, and we're going to be using some wire. I'm also using a bunch of crystals. I have some 6mm crystals here and 4mm bicones that I'm using in some fallish colors. This one here I did in blacks and whites. In addition to the crystals, again, I'm going to be using a bunch of crimp tubes. And the two sizes of wire that I'm using are either the FlexRite or Beadalon. Either one will work. I'm using 0.014 and I'm using 0.018 or 0.024. Either one will work. The thinner one is going to be for our little fringe pieces, and the thicker one is going to be for our base wire. In addition to those, I have two pliers that I'm going to be working with. One is my bent needle nose pliers, and another one is my wire cutters. Lastly, you'll need a clasp, and I'm just going to use a simple gold lobster clasp for the end, and put that there. So I just have my simple gold lobster clasp that I'm going to be using. So we'll get ready to get started. So to get started, what I'm doing is I cut about 20 inches of my thicker wire, and that's the 0.018 or 0.024 wire, and I'm putting a bead stopper. I forgot to mention we need a bead stopper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a bunch of my 4mm Swarovski crystals. The amount of crystals is kind of up to you. What we're going to be using these crystals for is to space out some of our fringe, and I'm going to put on about 12 here that I have, and that's going to give me 11 pieces of fringe that I can work with, because I'm going to be using fringe in between each of the little crystals. So I have my crystals here that I'm putting on, and I'm going to let them drop down on my wire, and they can just kind of hang out by my bead stopper. I have a lot more wire on the other end. It doesn't really matter what you're working with now, because this is a free-floating and free-form necklace. So what I am going to do is take another bead stopper and put it on the other end. That way this gives me a little parameter that I'm working between. I'm going to sit this to the side for a second, and I am going to cut 11 pieces of my finer wire, and this one is the 0.014. You can go with 0.014, you can do the whole necklace with the same size, it's up to you. And I'm going to cut 11 pieces of my wire that are between 2 and 4 inches. And I'm just going to do this at random, just cutting right along and pulling the wire off, and just make a little pile that it's going to sit right in. And again, I'm going to do about 11 pieces. And you don't need to overthink this, you can cut it. If you do want the necklace to be a little bit graduated, you can think that ahead of time and cut some pieces that are 4, and you're going to use those towards the middle, and cut some pieces that are 2 and use those towards the end. So I'm just cutting a bunch of little pieces here. This is also a great way to get rid of some of the ends of your wire. When you're done making your necklaces, you always have those little tiny pieces of wire at the ends. This is a great way to get rid of those. So keep hold of those and don't get rid of them. So once I have my little wire pieces cut, I'm going to put my wire cutters away for now, because we're not going to use them again. We're going to be using the wire that we have here, and we're going in between those beads. So I'm just going to take my little pieces of wire, I'm going to move them over to the side a little bit. And right now, I'm going to be using my larger crystals and my smaller crystals as well. I'm going to take my first piece of my shorter little piece of wire, and I'm going to put it between crystals 1 and 2. I'm going to double it over, and I'm going to stick a larger crystal onto my wire. That's going to go over both strands here and drop right to the middle there. I give a nice little tight pull. If you want the crystal to stay up at the top, what you're going to do is take a crimp tube here, slide the crimp tube right to the top of the wire, right underneath the bead, going through both strands, and you can crimp it wherever you want it to be. So I'm just going to let it hang just a little tiny bit lower than my crystals at the top. I'm going to take my pliers and just do a flat little crimp here. And that's just going to hold that crystal in place. The example that I did before, I actually didn't crimp them, so they can kind of move around the wire, and that just gives a different look. With this one, I am going to crimp it in place just to show you the difference that you can do with the design. Next, I'm going to pick 2 of my fall colors of my crystals here. I'm going to slide them on each piece of wire. So one on the one piece, one on the other piece, and they're going to be followed by a crimp bead on each one. So I'm going to bring out a bunch of crimp beads here because we're going to be using a lot. I'm going to push a crimp bead onto my thread, onto my wire, following my crystals. And this one's a little bit up here at the end, so what I'm going to do is bring it up towards the end of the wire and just flatten it out. I'm going to go to the next one, put this on as well. And this one I'll take right to the end because it looks good at the end. And I'm going to flatten this one out as well. If I have a little end piece, all I'm going to do is take my wire cutters and give a nice little cut and cut off that extra wire. Now when I pick this up and it hangs, that fringe is going to hang just right down at the bottom and just kind of hang there and hang out. What I like to do is, rather than graduate it, I like to do the fringe at different lengths. And I like to do the beads at different lengths too. So I'm going to take my next piece of wire, double it over, stick my bead on over both wires. Again, a crimp tube over both wires if you want that bead to stay somewhere. And I'm going to let my second bead here stay a little bit lower than my first bead. So I push that up there just to kind of crimp the wire there. And then I'm going to let it hang right there. And I'm going to let it hang there and then do a little bit of a crimp. I'm doing that flat crimp. Then I'm going to pick my next color. So you can see when you're doing this here, you can see at what length it's starting to hang. If I want this to hang a little shorter, which I do, I'll just pre-cut some of these wires and just trim them down a little bit so I can get the next crystals to hang at a different angle. I'm going to pick up two different colors, slide them onto my wire, and I'm going to do one at a time here just because it's short. I'm taking my pliers then right to the end and just squashing down. These are 2x2 millimeter crimp tubes that I'm using right now. You can also use 1x1 millimeter crimp tubes if you're using the thin wire especially. It'll give just a nice smaller gold effect or silver effect or gunmetal, whatever color you're using. Put the next one on, go right to the end and squash it down. And that's going to be my next one that's hanging out. I'm going to get ready to do the third one, and then I'm going to continue doing that same pattern the whole way. So for the third one, again, I loop the wire underneath. I'm coming out the top here. I'm going to take my next crystal and stick that on. Put on another crimp tube over both wires. Figure out where I want this one to be. I don't want it to be too low, that what happens, it can go over the end of my bead. So I don't want to make that loop bigger than a 4 millimeter. So I'm hanging them at different lengths, but I don't want them to be too far away in length. If you do want them to hang at different lengths, you can do multiple beads on to each piece of fringe, or you can use a bigger bead too at the top. I like the length that these are hanging, so I'm going to put on 2 more of my fall colored crystals and put on my crimp tubes. Crimp that right in place. Go to my next one and pick up another colored crystal. And one thing I will say about this design is it's not super friendly to sweaters. It does have a lot of little ends at the end, which can grab on to lace or sweaters. So it's a great necklace to wear to formal events. You have a nice neckline and it can just wear right above it. And there's my next little one that I have there. And I'm going to continue the whole line down, doing in between each crystal, and then I'll show you how I end it. So here I am, and I'm done with my little fringe section, and all I'm going to do is, just like I did with this black necklace, is I'm just going to put a simple lobster clasp right on the end of the wire, leaving the wire exposed. If you want, you can put extra crystals on right up along the sides. That's up to you. I'm just going to do it nice and simple, so that way it looks like a little floating kind of fringe there. And all I'm going to do at the ends is I'm going to put on my lobster clasp. So I'm going to take my crimp bead, put it on, through my lobster, back through my crimp tube, and since I have my flat nose needle nose pliers here, I'm just going to go in and squash down the needle nose and just do a flat crimp. I'm going to cut close, and then I'm going to go to the other side, take my stopper off here, decide on how long you want the necklace to be. And I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side, just attaching a loop. So all I'm going to do here is that loop end. This is a necklace that's really nice to put an extender chain on, because if you are wearing it for formal events, for weddings or homecomings or just dressy dinner, it's nice to have the different sizes that you can wear it at. I'm going to have this one here. This necklace is going to be right about 16 inches, so it sits short on the neck. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to take my pliers and again just do a flat crimp, cutting off the extra wire. And that's it. So nice and simple. If you want, you can put crimp tubes on the sides here so that it isn't quite as floating. But it's just going to move all along here and just kind of bubble up and down and just have this nice little fringe to it. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully this gives you some ideas to use your wire scraps and to kind of use things up. You can do lots of different designs, lots of different colors. You can use tons of different beads. Do this, the whole necklace really makes a statement. If you get a chance to get some more ideas, check out the rest of our YouTube videos. Also, like us on Facebook, and you'll get regular updates from us as well. And if you get a chance, go to PotomacBeads.com, click on our locations page, and check out a store that's close to you. So thanks a lot for watching this little fringe wire necklace.